We're reading in the book Kabbalah for the Beginner, page 38, Introduction to the Book of Zohar, item 4. We remind you that you can ask questions live during the lesson at www.kab.tv. Selected questions that are relevant to the topic will be aired. Again, Introduction to the Book of Zohar, item 4. In order to understand these questions and inquiries, the trick is to start by looking at the end, that is, at the purpose of creation. For nothing can be understood in the middle of the process, but only at its end. And it is clear that there is no act without a purpose. For only the insane can be found to act purposelessly. We understand that every act must begin from the end, where it is clear what we want to achieve, what's a desirable result, and that goal should be as clear as possible, as clarified clear result, and by knowing the result, the end of the act. Now, what do we need to do to achieve the end of the final goal? So we begin from the end to plan our steps backwards to our current state. And only in this way can we be certain that if we, after all this planning, from determining the goal and going back to our current state, only then can we be certain that if we do it, we'll do it successfully. If we want to do this, want to do that, this is unacceptable. In the world, correctly. Because the world is made of laws, strict laws, natural laws, and we need to know what we want, our desire, and that our desire is not against nature because we can't get out of our nature. So our goal should be according to nature's laws, our own laws, our own nature, the ability to do everything that's possible so that the final goal will be supported by nature, not by the Creator, which is the same thing because God in Gematria is nature. So if we want, with every single element and every stage along the way, say, this is the goal, and right now we're here. So every element along the way, we can measure it as opposed to what we've traversed and what we have yet to traverse. And only from these 2 points over these 2 points do we build the state in between. So the state in between is built from everything that I've experienced thus far. Everything I've experienced thus far is like a support for my current state. And the final goal is really should become, to some extent, more and more revealed in what is in between. But we have a problem here. The shapes that we go through are shapes that don't allow us to see that we're advancing towards the goal. Because here we are inverting our qualities. Here we're all in the will to receive. Our goal is to achieve the desire to bestow. So it turns out that along the way we acquire all kinds of opposite forms from the goal, from the final goal, where every time I grow, the more I grow, the more my egoistic desire grows as well. And in each state I'm in, say when I'm in that state, I feel my ego from here to here, that it's grown compared to, say, the ego I had in my previous state. If I feel the ego, if I feel the kli, that's a sensation of decline. Or if I feel the light, if I feel in ascent, then sometimes I determine that I'm in a worse off state if I'm in decline because my ego is worse. And if I'm in the light, I see that I'm in a more advanced state. So sometimes I have a problem to see things if I'm going according to my desire grows. Then it's seemingly I'm seemingly worse. That's why Bala Sulam says you can't quite distinguish. It depends on the situation, but normally you can't really distinguish. You can't really give discernment to a person halfway through. He compares it, I'm not sure if it's here or somewhere else, to a boy and a tailor. The father brings the boy to a tailor to make a suit, and the tailor takes a beautiful piece of cloth and he cuts it, and he seems like it's been ruined, so the child doesn't understand. So he says, why is he ruining this cloth? But the father understands that otherwise he won't be able to sew a suit for him. So it depends on who's examining the situations in creation along the process. So only those who know the end can understand the points along the way. So it's impossible that a person who didn't acquire some understanding, the minimal attainment of the goal, if a person didn't achieve that, he will not be able to understand the way, much less teach others. Regrettably, we're seeing many people who, quote-unquote, teach Kabbalah, and without attainment, they do, well, whatever they want. Yes. Paragraph, I know. I know that there are those who cast over their backs the burden of Torah and mitzvot, the precepts or commandments, saying the Creator has created reality, then left it alone, that because of the worthlessness of the creatures, it is not fitting for the exalted Creator to watch over their petty little ways. Indeed, without knowledge they have spoken. For it is not possible to comment on our nothingness and lowliness before we decide that we have created ourselves with all our tarnished natures. But while we decide that the Creator, who is perfect in every way, is the one who created and designed our bodies with all their admirable and contemptible attributes, surely from under the hand of the perfect worker there cannot emerge an imperfect act, since each act testifies to its performer. So what fault is it of a bad garment if some no-good tailor made it? So, whatever you say, if you say something bad about creation, it's as if you're saying something bad about the Creator who created creation. We already know the answer. The answer is that because creation is perfect, and we're not seeing creation, but we're seeing our own corrupted vision. It's called he who faults in his own defect. I have to correct my vision to see it not through the light of reception, but through the light of bestowal. And then the whole of creation will be seen correctly, as perfect as it is. In other words, other than our tools of perception, there is nothing for us to correct. The Creator created the world of Ein Sof, the world of infinity, to begin in the beginning. Everything is in its final and complete perfection. We just need to correct our perception, our understanding of the situation we're in. Instead of the world Ein Sof, we feel this world. And all of these worlds are in our sensation. So, other than that, there's nothing to change. There's Ein Sof here, and I'm here, for example, looking at Ein Sof. But from me to Ein Sof, there are 5 worlds. Worlds are concealments of the Ein Sof. As I gradually correct myself, these concealments disappear and I get to see as it is. And I was always in that state of Ein Sof. But right now, I am unaware, unconscious of it. And I need to bring myself back to this consciousness. So we're only talking about correcting our tools of perception. And why did the Creator made it so we would have to correct ourselves from being unaware to being completely aware of what He created initially in the thought of creation? Because by that we begin to understand the Ein Sof on a deeper level. When we come from that source through all the worlds to Ein Sof, we acquire the tools, the vessels, the understanding, the sensation, the clarity, the understanding of the depth of Ein Sof, so we would feel all of it to its deepest level. In other words, the depth that it has, all of these 4 phases of direct light. So I would feel this Havaya. This is what I prepare myself to in the 5 worlds, to feel the 5 discernments in Ein Sof. Such as this we find in the Talmud, Ta'anit, item 20. A tale about Rabbi Elazar, who came before a most ugly man. He then said to him, "How ugly is that man?" The man replied, "Go and tell the craftsman who made me. How ugly is this instrument you have made." Hence, those who claim that because of our nothingness and lowliness, it is not fitting for Him to watch over us, and therefore He has left us, do nothing more than publicly display their ignorance. Rabbi Elazar was a great Kabbalist. And the ugly man that came before him means that he discovered in himself this man, and how ugly is his own will to receive. So he was appalled. What can you do with it? And then he was told, "Go to the craftsman who made me." In other words, you have someone to turn to. Go to the Creator. He'll give you the tools. You'll correct yourself. By correcting yourself, you also achieve dvikut, adhesion with the Creator, because you receive from Him both this corrupted will to receive and the desire to complete it, to correct it, or complement it. So together with Him, you work on that, and then you achieve dvikut. So there's no reason to complain about the corrupted states. They exist in our sensations, so we would correct our sensations only. The situation that was created by the Creator in itself is the perfect state. Page 39. Try and imagine if you had met some man who would create creatures precisely so that they would suffer and agonize their whole lives as we do. And not only that, but cast them behind his back, not wanting even to look after them or watch over them, to help them a little. How contemptible and low would you regard him? Can such a thing be thought of him? Meaning, Kabbalists is saying, undoubtedly, the corrupted world we think we're in is only the corruption in our tools of perception. And if we correct that, then we would understand exactly where we are. If we could see the perfect picture to begin with, we would feel it as nothing more than nefesh. Only that, because our tools of perception would not be able to discover the depth and the clarity and the keenness of the sensation. Like a baby, say you have a child that's born 7 or 8 pounds, it just throws its hands and legs in the air, it doesn't hear, it doesn't see anything, it doesn't even know what it needs. We have to understand in advance what this baby needs and do all kinds of things kind of on it. The baby in itself is what? Is nothing. So this is how we would feel reality had we remained in Ein Sof. And today, yes, today we're still in Ein Sof, and that's how we feel reality. Just like a baby, detached from its environment. And that's how detached we are from our environment today, from Ein Sof. What do we need? To grow. Growing means acquiring tools or vessels that can absorb the environment we're in. That's it. It can perceive the environment we're in. So we have to work on the keenness of the discernment within us. Towards what or who? Towards Ein Sof. Not towards what, jumps within us, which seems to us, that appears to us, which is this world. But to constantly want to develop our perception with respect to the light, to the giver, the creator. Item 5. Therefore, common sense dictates that we grasp the opposite of what appears to be on the surface and decide that we are truly noble and worthy creatures of immeasurable importance, actually worthy of the worker who had made us. For if you wish to find faults in our bodies, then behind all the excuses that you give to yourself, it falls only on the Creator, who created us and the nature within us, for it is clear that He created us and not we. Well, the truth is, we're not in Ein Sof, in a state of infants right now that we understand. Like a baby who doesn't understand anything, or like a baby who doesn't feel anything. In Ein Sof, right now, we are functioning, fully functioning, in the ideal, perfect, and final way, final state, and nothing changes at all, except we are discovering the correct, perfect state of ours. That's it. So the Creator, who created the final state, created it in the perfect state. And the souls are in there, and in it, in that state. But with respect to the souls, their vision is blurred, so that they would discover that they're in the right state, so that they would discover where they are. He gives an example of a powder that you place on the food so you don't feel the pleasure in it. He gives all kinds of examples, but just to make it clear, we are in the world Ein Sof. We're there in our fullest glory. We're at the end of correction. Right now, we feel ourselves in a corrupted form, but we just feel ourselves in a corrupted form because we're controlled by the will to receive. Let's say we're sick, and that sickness confuses us and makes us all unconscious and disoriented. If we remove the illness, we will discover our true states. Yes. Lev from Moscow was asking about that. In bestowal, are there any deficiencies? None. Well, I don't know what he means, but bestowal is not a deficiency. Let's continue. Item 5, let's continue. Paragraph He. He also knows all the ways that stem from the nature and attributes He created in us. It is, as we have said, that we have to contemplate the end of the act. Then we will be able to understand it all. As the saying goes, do not show a fool an unfinished work. Yes. Rabbi Elazar, who saw the ugly man, doesn't he see it on himself? Yes, he sees himself. He sees 2 points. On the one hand, he sees, we're talking about a great Kabbalist already here, who sees from the end of the world to its other end. So on the one hand, he's walking on the beach. The beach is the beach of the sea of wisdom. You have to understand the symbolism here of the Zohar. The sea is the sea of wisdom. The beach is what is the end of the wisdom. And then he discovers this beast of the egoistic will to receive in its fullest measure. And he doesn't know what to do. He's discovering himself in the final state. Like Rabbi Shimon discovered himself in the state of Shimon from the market. So he's got a solution here. Turn to the Creator and he'll correct that final state, final form of yours. Item 6. Our sages have instructed that the Creator created the world for no other reason but to delight His creatures. And here is where we must place our mind and heart, for it is the ultimate aim of the act of the creation of the world. And we must bear in mind that since the thought of creation was to bestow upon His creatures, He had to create in the souls a great amount of desire to receive that which He had thought to give. For the measure of each pleasure and delight depends on the measure of the will to receive it. The greater the will to receive, the greater the pleasure, and the lesser the desire, the lesser the pleasure from reception. Thus, the thought of creation itself dictates the creation of an excessive will to receive, to fit the immense pleasure that His Almightiness thought to bestow upon the souls. For the great delight and the great desire must go hand in hand. In other words, the Creator doesn't have a choice, so to speak, right now, according to our understanding. If He wants to give infinite pleasure, He must create in the souls infinite desires. So the great will to receive must be excessive to the extent that He wants to give, right? If I want to give pleasure to someone, or if I want to enjoy myself, then I enjoy, say, in 200 grams. If I have a desire for 200 grams, then an abundance of 200 grams comes to me, and then I enjoy. Right? Now the question is, what do you think? If the Creator wants to give the lights, the infinite light, right? Light of Ein Sof. What kli should He create? A need, a deficiency, that is also infinite. Who could take that? Who could tolerate it? And who can correct it? Who can even feel it? What kind of cruelty should there be to create such a thing in a person? The minute a person feels a little deficient, he gets immediately depressed. If there's a little more, he just explodes. And when there's a little more, he kills himself. Can you do this thing? Impossible. The will to receive cannot stand deficiency and then fulfillment. But if the deficiency doesn't come before the fulfillment, then he will not feel pleasure. Deficiency, 1. 2. Fulfillment. 3. Pleasure. There's no other way. So what do you do? Is there a solution here? This is why the solution is to create the will to receive with the intention to receive, so that he would gradually want the contrary, to bestow. And then he will gradually come to great desires to bestow out of the will to receive. He would increase the intention on top of the kli and not suffer every time. But it'll give him contentment, pleasure, because the deficiency will point to the pleasure that exists within the giving. If I am deficient, look at how basic these things are, but how difficult it is to explain them and to understand them. Right? If I am deficient, and here there's pleasure, then I feel 1, the deficiency, and then 2, the pleasure. And then I feel incomplete. How can I come to a point where in the deficiency itself I feel the pleasure? And then I wouldn't consider it a deficiency. I develop a deficiency, and the more I develop it, I feel greater pleasure in it from within the deficiency itself. If the deficiency, the need, is to bestow, to give. On top of the will to receive, the more I want to give, it's called pains of love, I enjoy. This is why this whole process, this whole circle happens. Because if we could achieve fulfillment directly, it would be unbelievable the kind of suffering that we would discover along the way. Infinite suffering. We don't know anything in our world. We are pinched here and there. We just lose it. But when you have suffering opposite the upper lights, it's suffering that just, it's as if you're being beheaded every second. I don't know what it has done to your body. Spiritual tortures are, there's no way to describe it. So, to achieve the infinite deficiency, and I have to get to the infinite deficiency, otherwise I will not feel the infinite pleasure. For that to happen, the Creator created the process where the deficiency comes with the intention atop it. The deficiency that works for itself, but the intention to give. So the more we develop the intention, the more we enjoy, even though we feel the deficiency in it. We still enjoy, because it's all aiming at others. I'm sorry, I can't explain it more simply. I'll try. But you just need to understand that there's a profundity here in the process, because otherwise we would suffer such torments. The Creator can't do it because He's benevolent. But we would experience things and what we feel today we feel our own corruptions in the will to receive, without the intention. The minute you put an intention to bestow over it, there are no sufferings. In other words, in spirituality there are no sufferings. There is suffering only at the level of this world. Once you cross the mahsom, the barrier, there is no bad feeling. Everything is good. The suffering we feel on top of the will to receive. It suffers until we get rid of this tiny shell of the body. I don't want to answer questions here. We need to further explain it several times until we can make it easier. Right now, it's just to understand that the process of creation is so that we wouldn't suffer, in short. Whether you understand it or not, that's the bottom line. The whole of creation in its expansion from above downwards, in its ascension from below upwards, to integrate the vessels of reception and the vessels of bestowal, and to do it in concealment. Concealment, the Creator doesn't hide Himself from us. He hides so that we wouldn't feel the gap between us, because that would be intolerable suffering for us. Okay. Item 7. Once we have learned that, we've come to understand the second inquiry to its fullest. To its fullest, not fullness. With complete clarity. For we have learned what is the reality that one can base clear decisions on, that is not a part of his essence, to the extent that we can say that it is a new creation existence from absence. And now that we know for sure that the thought of creation is to bestow to His creatures, He necessarily created a measure of desire to receive from Him the bounty and delight that He had planned for them. Thus, we see that will to receive, which certainly was not part of His essence before He had created it in the souls, because from whom would he receive? That is a novelty that is not in him. And along with that, we understand, according to the thought of creation, that there was no need to create anything more than the will to receive. For this new creation is sufficient for him to fulfill the entire thought of creation that he had thought to bestow upon us. But all that filling in the thought of creation, meaning all the benefits he had planned to render us, stem directly from his essence, and he has not a need to recreate them, since they are already extracted, existence from existence, into the great will to receive that is in the souls. Thus we see that the whole matter of the renewed creation, from start to end, is only the will to receive. In other words, we have the Creator, the light, the pleasure, however you want to call it. It wanted to have a creature who would feel the pleasure from him. So the creature has to be like a replication of the Creator, but with a desire to enjoy the Creator, to delight in the Creator. But to enjoy what? To enjoy the quality of the Creator to bestow. In other words, again, look at it again. The creature must have the Creator's quality of bestowal and enjoy that quality. Not to receive something from the Creator. There's nothing to receive. To be in the Creator's state and to enjoy that. This is the creature in its final state. How do you bring the creature to that state, to being like the Creator, and to enjoy being like the Creator? If you're like the Creator completely, then you're not a creature. There is no creature. So before that, you have to be in the opposite state. And this is why it is called a creature. Creature in Hebrew comes from the word bal, bria, in other words, outside of the Creator. You have to be given independence. You have to be opposite. Opposite means not giving but receiving. And at the same time, you have to be like the Creator, a giver, and enjoy being a giver like the Creator. All of these conditions, the preliminary conditions, determine what happens next in creation. This is why the Creator created the will to receive. And the will to receive should acquire the form of bestowal and enjoy being in bestowal. Item 8. Now we've come to understand the words of the Kabbalists in the third inquiry. We wondered how it was possible to say about souls that they were a part of God above, like a stone that is carved from a mountain. There is no difference between them except that one is a part and the other is a whole, or the whole. And we wondered, it is one thing to say that the stone that is carved from the mountain becomes separated by an axe made for that purpose. But how can you say that about his essence? And with what were the souls divided from his essence and were excluded from the Creator to become creatures. From the above, we clearly understand that just as the axe cuts and divides a physical object in two, so the spiritual change of form divides it in two. For example, when two people love each other, you say that they cleave to one another as one body. And when they hate each other, you say that they are as far from one another as the east from the west. But there isn't a question of nearness or distance of place here. But it goes to show their resemblance of form, that when they are of equal form, they each love, and each loves what the other loves, and hates what the other hates. They become lovers and cleave to one another. And if there is some change, disparity of form between them, meaning that one of them likes something that the other hates, and such, then to the extent that they differ in form, they become distant and hateful of one another. And if, for example, they are opposite in form, meaning that everything one likes is hated by the other, and everything he hates is liked by the other, they are deemed as far away from each other as the east from the west, meaning from one end to the other. Normally, we picture two bodies, objects where one is far from the other. Otherwise, afterwards they get closer. Afterwards they touch each other. Otherwise they are in one another to some extent until they are one within the other, two as one, right? Two as one. But this is still about objects. The intention is, what Bala Sulam means is the equivalence of qualities, the quality of bestowal. I'm in the Creator right now. The Kli is in the light of Ein Sof that feels it from without, from within, from all around. It surrounds it and fills it. But the more I match myself with my own efforts and work to that quality of bestowal, the more I understand it and feel it. I become like it. And this is called being or identifying with it. It and me become the same. In spirituality, there is no difference like the bodies that we have here. Like the bodies are different here. The minute a creature, regardless of the fact that it's made of a will to receive, it makes no difference. The will to receive is a tiny point in Ein Sof. It's just to give you yourself, to be somewhat independent, being outside of the light. If the creature works entirely from that point and builds for itself qualities of bestowal, it becomes like the light. There is no difference between that and the light. There is no boundary between it and the Creator. Where one begins, the other ends. There is no such thing. And then they become as one, and it's a kind of dvekut and unity that we don't understand right now. But it's without any, how should I put it, any boundary or difference between them in every way. It's not like in our world. I think like him, I want what he does. He likes this meat, I like this meat. No. Here, by equalizing in qualities, we become as one, literally. And this is the state that is destined for us. That that awaits our attainment as the goal. This is what the Creator designed for us out of His love for us. To advance towards that state, the creature must do it on its own. In the beginning, we discover that we are attached, not attached, far, near. But gradually, we begin to discover how we truly are far from it. We discover the light and the Kli together, as we said before. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to tolerate the emptiness of the Kli and the infinite distance. It's impossible to take it. You always suffer to the extent that you have free choice. What do I prefer, this or that? An inch this way or an inch that way to the scale of merit or demerit? That tolerance, that latitude you have there. This is the only thing that you feel as life that is given to you, for you to choose from. To sentence yourself to a scale of merit or sin. This is what you feel. And in between these two definitions is your whole life. Our lives are very narrow, very closed. It's totally concentrated between choosing this or that. And a person who feels any kind of discomfort in it simply feels this discomfort in a minimal way to make the free choice. And that discomfort is felt only in us. But when you begin to correct yourself, the discomfort becomes pleasure. Because in it you feel the pains of love. Like we say before a meal that is right in front of us, we decide to wait a few more minutes, to go for a little walk, to increase the appetite even more. So we can already have these flavors, but we deliberately choose to wait to enhance, to intensify the taste. So we want it to happen this way. So when the creature begins to advance towards the Creator, he evokes these deficiencies himself and wants them to have to be greater deficiencies, needs, pains of love, because through them he'll be able to express himself more and he'll be able to feel more of the pleasure of dvikut. Because with the pleasure of dvikut you give contentment to the Creator. Dvikut is adhesion. There are two opposites here. We see that these things are very complex within, because it's really the whole of creation. But again, the will to receive must come to a point where each time it moves towards the Creator, the will to receive has to understand that if it's going towards the Creator, it'll have no moment of suffering, only pleasure. Only if you stray away from the right path, you begin to suffer. And the sufferings are correction forces orienting you towards the goal. A question from the United States. Does the creature have something that the Creator doesn't have, like giving and receiving together? The creature has only what it receives from the Creator. You can say, yeah, but what about the will to receive? Even the will to receive is received from the Creator, otherwise where is the creature? From the posterior of the light that created the darkness. We must not forget that the creature, in the end, is a replication of the Creator. The light created for itself the opposite form of itself. Or we put it this way. Through the 613 lights called Creator or Torah, 613 desires were created, which are the creature. man, or Adam. Adam. We are continuing item 9. Well, I think you need to repeat item 8 and then 9. Okay, item 8 again. Now we have come to understand the words of the Kabbalists in the third inquiry. We wondered how it was possible to say about the souls that they were a part of God above, like a stone that is carved from a mountain. There is no difference between them except that one is a part and the other is the whole. And we wondered, it is one thing to say that the stone that is carved from the mountain becomes separated by an axe made for that purpose. But how can you say that about his essence? And with what were the souls divided from his essence and were excluded from the Creator to become creatures? From the above we clearly understand that just as the axe cuts and divides a physical object in two, the spiritual change of form, disparity of form, divides it in two. For example, when two people love each other, you say that they cleave to one another as one body. And when they hate each other, you say that they are as far from one another as the east from the west. But there isn't a question of nearness or remoteness of location in this case, but it goes to show the resemblance of form, that when they are equal in form, that each loves what the other loves and hates what the other hates, they become lovers and cleave to one another. And if there is some change or disparity of form between them, meaning that one of them likes something that the other hates, etc., thus, to the extent that they differ in form, they become distant and hateful to one another. And if, for example, they are opposite in form, meaning that everything one likes the other hates, and everything the second hates the first loves, they are far away from each other as the east from the west, meaning from one extreme to the other. Item 9. And you find that in spirituality, the change of form operates as an axe in the corporal world. And the distance between them is proportional to the oppositeness of form. From this we learn that since the will to receive pleasure has been imprinted in the souls, and since that form is absent in the Creator, because from whom can he receive, that difference of form that the souls acquired separates them from his essence, as the axe that carves a stone from the mountain. And because of that difference of form, the souls were separated from the Creator and became creatures. However, everything the souls acquire of his light is extended from his essence existence from existence. It therefore turns out that as far as the light that they receive in their vessel, which is the will to receive, is concerned, there is no difference between them and his essence. That is because they receive existence directly from his essence. And the difference between the souls and his essence is only that the souls are a part of his essence, That means that the amount of light that they receive in their vessel, in their kli, being the will to receive, is already separated from God, because it is received through the difference of form of the will to receive. And this disparity of form made it a part, through which they were separated from the whole and became apart. Thus, the only difference between them is that one is a whole and the other is a part, as a stone that is carved from a mountain. And scrutinize this meticulously, for it is impossible to expand further in such a sublime place. Issue. A few messages before we conclude. We invite you to stay with us after the lesson and watch Good Morning, the morning show that will start your day with much light and hope. Today, Sunday, a special broadcast day on the internet at www.kab.tv. At 4 p.m. Israel time, there will be a live broadcast of Rav Leitman virtual lesson in Hebrew, English, Russian, Spanish, and French. At 7 p.m., there will be a live broadcast of the World Yeshivat Chavarim, Assembly of Friends, a rare opportunity to look into the way the Bnei Baruch group worldwide is actualizing the counsels of the great Kabbalists. A Congress in North America will be held between May 30th and June 2nd in New York State. All the details are, you can find all the details at kabbalahgroup.info. Everyone is invited. One more message, all the English-speaking groups, please stay for the conference after the lesson. This concludes our lesson. Thank you very much. Have a good day and good night.